Morning, everybody. Welcome. Let's go around, take around the room. John Weddleton.
Pete Peterson.
Angie Honest, Phoenix Wolfers Office, Amy Dabrowski.
Sean Odell. Ryan L.
Am I included in this?
Sure, yes.
Oh, okay.
Craig Aglety, Dankers.
Lily Boxart, Bakeridge. Daniel Dean, Einstein, Raptors.
Justin Rowland, Einstein.
Kevin Miller, Public.
Terry Schoenfeld, Planning.
Dick Trainer.
Eric McConnell, OECD. Amanda Moser, Clerk's Office.
All right, thanks. So when we go through these, we usually invite the applicants to go ahead and sit right in these special reserved chairs.
The hot seats.
Okay.
I'm gonna grab one extra.
Have you been to one of these meetings before?
No.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll have a review of the license, very quickly review the staff report, and then if anyone has questions, we'll generally focus on the assembly members first, questions towards you and staff and so on. But if you have something you want to add, just go like this and I'll call on you. Can you add information as it's needed and so on. Give you plenty of time to talk. It's fairly casual. And it's to clear, the idea is to clear everything. If there's any issues, cleared out now, because when we get to our meeting on Tuesday, it's a little harder to get into detail. So, you want to go first? License stuff?
So for Dankridge, there was a couple of licensing issues that came up. We found there was taxes, fines, and fees due. I haven't heard back yet. There was notification sent on October 21st. So library and AWU. So when I hear back from them, then we can get that cleared off. But as of when I had to submit it, it was still on there. The only other one I know was more of a land use issue, so, kind of sign, there's issues with posting of the sign and all that, but the rest of the licensing issues are fine. There's, they are in compliance with all the requirements.
Yeah, can you give us a little more detail on posting of a sign? I know it maybe not with the licensing necessarily, but what did you see?
So they had said that there was gonna be, like a standard board and a sign posted on the pole. and
Yeah.
So that was,
Right.
Sean?
Yeah, okay, so this is Anchorage, which is kind of, everybody knows formerly the Anchorage House of Hobbies on the corner of Bernard, Benson there. You know, as I worked through it, they meet all the applicable standards. There was a little bit of confusion early on with, they provided a site plan, and that they have non-conforming rights for, as you know, that's a pretty tight site, so they have non-conforming rights for all sorts of things, landscaping, parking, turning maneuvering, things like that. So their site plan had kind of changed away from that, which you can't do in this situation, and they've agreed they're just gonna have to stick, if you turn to page 15, 132, they're gonna have to stick to that plan which they have non-conforming rights for. They have plenty of parking and what's required parking. So it's not gonna be an issue. Now, there was some comments from traffic that the traffic wanted them to kind of change some things there, facing Benson with those spaces. They wanted them to angle them a little bit, and that way they feel like the traffic feels that would work for people coming in and out of there. And they can do that. We made it a condition that they meet with traffic and kind of smooth, readjust their site plan a little bit. That works best. Their trash cans, they're just gonna store inside, therefore you don't, if you have a dumpster, you have to have a screen, they don't really have the space for that. They don't anticipate having a lot of trash, so they're just gonna keep their trash cans inside and just bring them out on trash day, which is allowed in the code. And other than that, just our standard conditions are on there. I didn't no other comments really from the public. I think they're gonna, I talked to Lily, and they're gonna put up some signage on opening day, or just maybe permanent signs.
Both.
Notifying that the, you know, REI, the fast go parking is not, you're not allowed to park there. And then, and so this will be the second one on Spenard, and as we talked earlier, now we're seeing 2 retail locations, so that maybe that'll kind of split up the big rush of people. If one looks really busy, we'll maybe drive on to the next one.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, you were, Craig?
Yes, Craig, we know there's been concern with parking, so we wanted to be proactive about that. So we're talking to the Buccaneer, and that's a bar across the street, they have a big parking lot in the back. And, we made aware of some reciprocal arrangements around town with parking, you know, they use their parking lot more at night. And so they're open to the idea of letting us use, their parking during the day, so we're trying to work that deal right now. Additionally, right next to them is Photo Avenue, which is a public street, and it has parking available on both sides, it's not used at all during the day. And, there's a nice crosswalk right there on the corner, so, we feel that the parking issue is really not an issue for us.
Any questions?
I would like to add one more thing, they do have a memorandum of understanding with this, community council. Yeah. And you guys are going to call it.
Any?
Okay, so, this is B3, right? Is B3 required to have commercial cultivation when you're doing retail? I remember.
They do the way around.
You're gonna have cultivation, you have to, wait, you can go straight retail.
Yeah, yeah.
Trying to go straight. When do you guys think you're gonna open?
Early December, we're hoping about a month from now.
And, it looks like you've been proactive, my understanding with this, it's, I'm trying to get a relation to how it actually says in this picture. So the parking then, the angle spots are right here? Is that
Yeah.
where they're asking to angle them?
Yeah, because people are gonna have to kind of turn.
Yeah, sure, and,
Yeah, it really makes more sense, I mean, people you naturally park that way when you drive in there. It just makes more sense to just angle your car right in there, and so it's common sense really, so.
We haven't put the lines down, we're happy to put them however traffic wants us to put them down.
I don't know if they'll be able to do them in the wintertime.
Yeah, we get out there with.
They say there's a
blowtorch.
blowtorch you do before it and then you
Yeah.
run it, and I've never done it, but they say they can do it.
Our guys say they can do it,
Yep.
yeah.
That's good, okay. And, yeah, I think you're right, 'cause I think the other locations, Bernard had issues with their parking as well. Is this Bernard Road project gonna impact this particular location at all?
Only positively. We're have the building directly across the street owned by the DMV is going to be torn down and put up a 5-story parking garage right there. It's not taking any of our parking in front, it'll just expand it on the Spenard side a little bit, but the Benson side, which is where our parking is, won't be affected at all.
Could you clarify on the parking?
That may or may not happen.
Wow. Okay.
That was kind of the early plan.
Okay.
But there may be a surface parking impact.
Either way, it would be helpful.
Yeah, well, we're really familiar with the Spenard corridor plan. We, you know, they come to the meetings in Spenard, and, they're great people, and, the plans that they have are really only gonna benefit us. They're trying to increase, you know, walking, pedestrian traffic in Spenard and make it more friendly to retail. So-
Yep, we're also going to offer a discount for those who bike to our location, so we'll give a 10% biking discount and, so, you know, hopefully that'll encourage people to not bring their car at all and to just bike.
You guys are taking a line right out of the rustic code, they did the same thing.
Did they?
Oh, they did.
Oh, okay.
We thought we'd be able to do that.
Right, I just like to, you know, encourage, I mean, for other reasons besides parking issues and environmental and such, but yeah.
No.
I don't have any concerns with this one, that I see.
You know, I had a couple things. Did you? Go ahead. Okay, so you have that pole sign and that's not allowed.
That's
You
what
have
we
a
were just
sign on
told.
it. Yeah, what are you gonna do with the pole?
So it's not our building, and I was told that if we took the pole down, if someone else wanted to use it, if we happened to leave, they couldn't put it back up. So I don't really wanna take it down, but I'm happy to, if he had a suggestion this morning.
I can speak to that. So they've submitted a sign, permit for the signs, and, speaking with Michael Packard, land use review, sign as I originally thought, 'cause it's attached to the building, therefore it makes it a rooftop sign.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, that has to come down. It's not allowed, the rooftop sign, so no one would be able to use it, you know, if it was just a coffee shop or anything. There's no grandfather rights, so to speak. So Packard suggests they can unbolt that frame and they can put it on the, Bernard side on the building, because all the signs have to be attached to the building.
And we're happy to do that, we can make that work, absolutely.
You had, maybe you worked this out, but it was more in the, write-up for the state application, you were talking about how you would send people to park in the Northern Lights Mall and stuff like that.
That has been
Do they-
adjusted.
Are they willing to allow you to park there?
They're not thrilled about it, no. And so
They
that's.
can say no.
Pardon me?
They can say no.
Right, and so they don't like that.
Right.
And so what we're going to do instead is encourage people, we're gonna work out something with the Buckaroo, and so that'll be our overflow parking. And then we'll encourage people to park on Photo Avenue, which is right there, and then there's a crosswalk. We also anticipate, I mean, obviously there'll be a crush at the beginning, but we anticipate our customers only being in the store 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, we're doing everything prepackaged. We want everything to be quick. And so we have 7 spots, and we're hoping that they get rotated out pretty quickly. We're gonna put permanent signage on the front of our, store that says it's these 7 spots only, you know, there's overflow parking here and here. And so we're gonna address it that way. If it becomes a problem, we've already told Fabco that we're happy to pay for signs to be put up in their lot that say, this is not Dankridge parking, it's Fabco only, so we're happy to work with that as well.
I'd like to add too, that they close at 6:30 during the weekday,
We do.
and then they're only open till 8.
Right, we have we're very reasonable hours. Right.
There's also public parking south of KMH. It's
Yes.
a little bit far from you guys.
Yes.
It is, people don't really know that and use it.
Right.
Must be so.
Okay. Maybe I'll hand out parking diagrams for the
Okay,
first
not
few
bad
weeks, you
idea.
know, have a
Not bad
printout of
idea.
all the local parking areas. And certainly I'll put that on the Facebook and all the website so people can prepare before they even come.
Any other comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, obviously, if someone wanted to go to REI and shop and then come to your place, yeah, I don't think they would mind them parking there first.
They might.
So-
I would hope not, I would hope not, you know, and I'm hoping that if people park at Middleway and then come to our store and then go eat at Middleway, I just think they're a little scared initially. I think once our customers come and they realize that people are parking, maybe buying something at our store and then spending money and time in the Northern Lights complex, I don't feel like it'll be as much of a conflict.
Yes, I know initially people were, pretty worried because it's a sort of an unknown.
Right.
But, I think once the initial newness wears off.
And our target customer is the exact same customer as REI, as Middleway, as La Bodega. That's who our customer is. So we're hoping that, you know, they eat at Middleway and come to us, they go to REI and come, and it's all, you know, they walk around the whole complex.
Great. Thanks.
Anything else? What do you mean to do with this?
Move to approve. 10% wasn't.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Any objections? So at the assembly meeting, you'll come up, and there'll be a public hearing to speak, and we'll just say that this committee recommended that it be approved with the conditions from the staff, that you pay your fine,
Right.
and,
Your library card fine?
Children.
You think it's funny, but you wouldn't believe how many people not owe money to the library, and
I
pick them
know.
up here coming in. So.
Shame on you.
They're getting me, I know.
Terrible.
It's a bunch of
Good luck.
children's
Good
books,
luck
and that's
with this.
better, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of you.
Appreciate it.
Seems ridiculous, please don't.
so next up is the Raspberry Root. We have seats reserved for you. Amanda, you're on?
So Raspberry Roots, there is a condition for pass-through, they have taken care of that. Yeah, so on my
Yeah, so he was at the same meeting that you were at, and he was more concerned with the one that was on Arctic Spur. And he even said, I don't have a problem with you, you're far enough away, I don't have a problem with one on Arctic Spur because we can see him from our parking lot.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, can I ask one question? What hours are you planning on, working the retail side of it?
Well, seasonal, you know, winter will probably have tighter hours than summer, but, I would say the outside during the summer would be potentially 10 AM to 10 PM, but more likely shorter hours for the year.
And the only reason I bring this up, you're the first one, retail that I'm just looking at your kind of far away location, which is good.
Yeah.
For neighbors, right? But, I kind of look at your application as a potential target, because you are a little bit further away, so the longer hours you stay open at night, just with your safety, so I'm sure you thought about that.
Yes.
But especially because you're in this kind of far away industrial kind of complex. May God be with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot said about this parking in this building. Like they have gravel on one side, they have parallel parking on one place, and then some in front. Is there really an issue with not having enough parking, or is it just technical?
It's a tight spot. They do have a non-conforming determination for lack of 3 spaces, so that affords them, if they wanted to only provide 21 spaces, they could legally do so. They're required to have 24 on site, and they do show 24 in the provided site plan. There were some concerns from the traffic safety department about the parking lot layout, which is why I added that condition into the resolution. To my knowledge, that has since been resolved. I believe there was a site plan that was provided to us, traffic was going to sign off on. But they still do have the non-conforming determination. If need be, traffic department said, we don't like these additional 3 spaces, go ahead and take them out, so you get more turning into green space within the parking lot.
If I could just go on with that, if traffic approves 24 spaces and they establish 24 spaces, they lose their non-conforming rights for those 3 spaces, so you can't, like, in 2 years, go back to 21.
Ready for
Correct.
that? Well, who's that? That affects the building owner.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, question. What's the speed limit on Raspberry? Is it 45? I'm just concerned about your people getting out, because 45 is pretty fast.
Well, on certain parts of Raspberry it is, but we are right between 2 lights. So, I mean, it's probably 100 yards between C Street and Arctic, and we're right smack in the middle. So if somebody's doing 45 where we are, then they've got other issues.
I just want you guys to be safe.
Thank you. I
Once you come out of your business, you'll flatten my curve.
Yeah, my guess is, I mean, generally speaking, people are doing 10 to 20 because, again, there's those 2 lights, and it's right on C Street where it tees off, kind of, so.
So what's your sense on your parking that you, because we've heard from one place, cultivation takes like 3 shifts of 10, 15 people, or some huge numbers of people, is that?
It's not gonna take that many. We're also looking into, talking to our neighbors. We're in negotiations with some neighbors to see if we can rent out some spaces for our employees, leaving everything up front for the customers.
And there's 17 spaces up front.
Yeah.
Which is probably a lot for retail, but you have your cultivation.
Right.
Different cultivation methods take different amounts of people, and so if you're doing more of an automated system, that's more of a hydroponic and flow that way instead of soil and hand watering and whatnot, you need less people.
Okay. Any other comments? So what do you want to do with this?
Einstein Labs, they complied with all the licensing requirements. There were taxes, penalty fees due, they took care of those, so that's not a condition. Everything else is really good with their application.
Sean?
Yeah, so Einstein Labs is over on Portsmouth Line Drive, they have a cultivation facility approval. That was the, I believe, the first one that was seen. They're gonna be doing manufacturing here, just a small portion of it, roughly 800 square feet, 874 square feet. They, let's see here, we do have a limitation there, direct retail sales to the general public is prohibited, that's just a standard, what you'll see that in all our manufacturing. Rest of it, they had previous approval, so they're working through their site plan on that. They have a building permit and they're working through everything. They're just gonna have to tweak their site plan a little bit to screen the trash receptacle, which is kind of 21. Once again, traffic engineer had some ideas to kind of tweak their parking and get that a condition. I think they work with traffic to switch those spaces around so the accessible spaces are a little bit more friendly to the user. Currently, they're just getting set up for their cultivation and then this manufacturing. If you guys have questions regarding manufacturing, I think Justin's the most knowledgeable person I've talked to yet. Other than that, they meet all the requirements for Chapter 1.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from Emily?
I was just saying, we're starting to see some of the same applicants back for their second license now. So some of these I'm a little more comfortable with just because I've seen before, but Justin, when do you anticipate your products are gonna start hitting the market?
So if we can stay on track with the timeline of the build, because it's intricate, so there's a lot of moving parts there. So we've got fire marshal, we've got electrical to comply with. So we have a target ETA of having it completed January 1st, which has shifted, it kind of keeps shifting. So I'm trying to stay on that target, but if we can have it built by December 1st and I have my CO, I actually have trim contacts already in the works, so I would actually have trim secured from other cultivators that could actually start producing products that day. So that's what I've told you.
So, just a question on the screening, the whole premise is gonna be enclosed with a fence with those little, slots that go in, is that a sufficient screening? I just didn't know.
And the trash actually sits inside the
the
locked
screen.
secured fence, so I have to open the gate up when solid waste services come by. And
Is it a dumpster?
it is a dumpster.
But it would be screened by that.
And then the security fence has those green slats in it, so you guys actually can't even see into my yard. So I don't know if.
How far is it from the street?
Oh, if you look on the diagram, page 60, I believe. It's no, not quite. It's about, I would say from the street where my property line is, it's probably about 65 feet. It's probably depends on where you measure from the easement, but right in there.
It just has to be screened. So whether or not it's screened, that's
Okay, and then, and if you don't wanna know this, we don't have to go through it, but the products that you have in your application, there were certain packaging things that we agreed to with the MCB board, and I could go through it real quick if you wanted to know those changes to those products specifically. Yeah, go ahead. So the first one is gonna be the leaf chews, and if you see, the leaf chews have these, see, my page is probably different than your page. Do that.
But on 223, is it? 222?
220, yeah, 220.
So all of those bright colored pictures, those, fruits, the cupcake, all of that, the board felt a little uncomfortable that might be enticing children. So we're not gonna have those pictures at all, we're just gonna have a picture of the product, and none of the products are brightly colored.
They have color to them, but the board felt that
And
if
that's
it's
what
stolen
there's-
out color, then it's not gonna attract children.
Right.
And if it is an issue, we can always change things down the road for everybody.
The other one, which is Wake and Bake, is childproof, so the requirement is that it's childproof for each bottle and push down
And
cap.
and when it reseals, it has to stay childproof. So some of them,
Right.
when you break the seal, they're not childproof no more. This particular bottle, whenever they put the cap back on, it is re-childproof. So that was the situation with that.
And the last one, is going to be the lotion. The lotion, and that is, like, go back, how do I write that lotion?
One ninety-eight.
198. In our MJO 4, we said that there was gonna be 50 milligrams per bottle. But during our discussion with MCB, we found and they agreed that maybe 5 milligrams per container would be a better, starting off. And so not doing the 50 milligrams per container, it's gonna be 5 milligrams of lotion, of concentrate in the lotion per an actual unit.
Their issue was, it would be really hard to delineate the serving sizes, and you're not eating it, so I mean, that was my original thing, when I put the 50 in there, because it's just applied topically. So it was just a condition that I'm more than happy to meet any condition to make this work for everybody, so.
So those are the only changes I wanted to let you guys know that's different from what you have in your packet.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah.
Where do you test these at to make sure they're childproof?
Well,
For
there's.
example, I got a package from Colorado and it took my grandson 30 seconds. My wife, I still can't open it. So, the kid was 6.
I agree, some of them I can't get into at first either, so don't feel too bad there. But there's a place that actually tests, child restricted blocks and things like that, and they have a rating on them. So as long as it meets that rating, and they have so many minutes ratings, I think they have, the child can't get into it for so many minutes is how it's rated. But all of our packaging will meet that, child rating.
Is that a national standard?
It is a national standard, yep.
Thank you, I just wanted to know.
But don't feel bad, because I can't get into some of them either.
Another question.
You don't have, some of this comes from, I think it was on page 3. It's actually written on moments, I think it's, but the point, it says the storage area should have a moisture, temperature, pest control, but it's not in the operating. Is this?
So we resubmitted that, with the city council.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all.
Yeah, so there should be a supplemental,
Yep.
Okay.
not sure. Okay, I'll touch
So
on
that's
this
taken
again.
care of.
Yeah, I'll touch this.
And then you had discussion, we've run into this before, where you have wastewater in barrels in case you can't dump stuff down the sink.
Basically, what we were concerned about is like if we were washing something that had THC in it, we didn't know if it was gonna be an issue to flush the THC down the drain. So if it's not, then it'll go right down the drain, because I mean, basically it all gets processed in your guys' system anyway. So if that is the case, I'd rather just be able to wash things and just wash them down to the city process. But in case you guys don't allow that, that was the backup plan for disposing of it.
Anyone know on THC goes straight on it?
We'll have some happy whales.
Do you know anything about it?
I
Maybe in one
do
case they
not,
said it was
AWU
fine.
has before had mentioned, I think it was with, Fuzzy Bud, said it was not an issue.
That was cultivation and retail. Is it different when you're doing processing?
Well, to me, that's actually a little worse, because they're flushing a little bit more chemicals and things like down there. I was more worried about, I don't know, I guess I don't know what I was worried about, I guess it's THC, I just didn't know if it was gonna be an issue, so, if it's, yeah.
We can check with AWU.
We haven't run into it being an issue. You brought it up.
Erica, would you ask AWU to check with feds to see if there's a problem with the amount of THC going in the water? Cause you know how inland the feds are, and the water that goes out there. She was laughing about the whales, but I wanna make sure we don't have a problem with the feds.
One of our, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, in the past, when we were talking about discharge water, in general, talking to AWU, they you know, as these industries get up, especially in manufacturing and cultivation, there becomes a problem. Every year, Amy will also, multiple times a year, they actually test their discharge, their acting to see what's going out, and they can give you, even now, they'll give you a breakdown, they can show you all kinds of different medications. I mean, they find traces of Viagra in the water. I mean, it's amazing how they break it down by chemical, cocaine, whatever it is, pesticides. And I know Brett has all that, so I'm sure he can give it to us. And it's something in a year or two, I think it'll be interesting to see if we measure it.
Okay.
And one policy, just to touch on that I will be willing to implement if it is an issue, instead of having collected wastewater with THC in it, if we just alcohol wiped our pans down before we wash them and threw it away, you wouldn't even have an issue with it. So I mean, there are steps that we can take, and if it is an issue, then I'd be more than willing to implement with you guys.
What is alcohol wiping do?
It would just pull all the THC right off the pot or whatever we were cleaning, utensils, whatever it may be.
Explain why the alcohol would do that.
Because the alcohol, it's polar to THC where it's kind of non-polar, so it'll actually attract that. Just kind of like soap when you wash yourself, it attracts all the dirt off of you. It's the same exact chemical reaction. So.
You had on page 152, no sign.
No signage. I really don't want anybody to know we're even there.
We talked about this in your last
Yep.
application. So is that any issue for inspectors and whatnot?
As long as you have an address.
Have an address.
I would prefer it this way, especially, I mean, you guys don't have a retail market. Anybody who's coming to get your product, they're gonna know where you are.
And there'll be a meeting set up on the phone. I mean, yeah.
It sounds fine. One thing, when we get these kind of small things like that, we have, right now, the rule, if you make any changes to your plan, you have to come to us. I don't know if I want to take meeting time, or whatever it is, to say, okay, put a sign on your door,
Gotcha.
But that's gonna be changed. We're gonna make it so minor stuff, you don't have to come to this something, but you don't want to overcommit on something like that. But that's okay. I just want to make sure you're comfortable with that, so. Pete?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So, I'm looking through, you're planning to use butane?
So here's kind of my plan with that. BHO is a demand in the market right now, so consumers want a BHO product. So you'll have your diehard BHO guys, you're gonna have your greener guys, they're gonna want a CO2 extraction or a more food process extraction. My hope is the market transitions to the more distillate side and ethanol extraction side, food grade side, which I'll have both. I'll have ethanol and I'll have hydrocarbon extraction in the beginning. But I'm hoping that everything transitions out of the hydrocarbons into a more natural extraction. And me personally, I like to distill everything, take everything to 99.9% THC, and I can add back in my terpene profile. So there's no other foreign chemical in this process at all. Very clean, very natural.
With respect to, this is really the first, I mean, we've had cultivation, we've had retail, and we've even had testing. We're actually talking about, a real deal manufacturing facility now. I think you guys are the first. Now this is the one, tell us from the state perspective, what kind of, requirements, professional requirements?
So for professional requirements, I probably went a step above that because I've been going out of state for quite a few last years and getting trained by biochemists and things like this, gearing up for this. But as far as state requirements, they just require that you have a letter from an industrial certified industrial hygienist, almost the exact same condition as the city. And as long as that industrial hygienist approves all your processes and your equipment, then he is the one as the professional that keeps your processes safe and things like that. So I have submitted all my processes to him, but he wants to come to Alaska and actually see the equipment and actually see it in process before he actually certifies that letter. So it was very hard to find an industrial hygienist, even locally, that would give you that letter without actually seeing the equipment and the processes. And so that's kind of where we're at on
So
the
the
certified.
second question is, once you get that, check off from the certified industrial hygienist, what happens? Is there any requirement in law that if you change your processes, you have to go back and you have to get that? Because, it's one thing to check it off and say, yeah, you're doing great, but then all of a sudden, changes happen, whatever, and then all of a sudden you adopt some sort of process that they deem is not safe, and we would never know.
Well, we have to, when we change, if he changed anything about his operating plan, MJ would file an MJ 15 with the state
Right, so if there's any change to that process, that would trigger a notification.
That would trigger an MJ-15 to the board, the marijuana control board, which
And an MJ-15 is
a change of operating plan.
Okay.
A change of operating plan, and a change, it would be a substantial change here too, in front of the muni for the licensing department, because it's MJ-01 change, and MJ-05 change too. So we would have to come back here too, and so that could be a requirement that you guys could impose, that we get recertified. I would highly doubt the control board wouldn't require us to recertify
A
the
new
equipment
process.
for a new process that was at all substantially different from what they've been doing.
And I mean, you're right, Amy, within that year, you could have a bad operator that could change the process, you guys might not know it, but then when we come back around to renewals, I mean, this has to be renewed every single year, so, I mean, the way I felt of it is if you have a good operator out there that is gonna change that process, we're gonna go through the right steps to actually change that process, as well as the facility is recorded 45 days?
40 days.
40 days, so they can go back and actually look at my processes for the last 40 days, and if they have a question, they can actually see that I've changed it, and then I'd be in trouble with the marijuana control board. So, me as an operator, would I ever risk that? No way. It's just.
Well, you know, the general is rules aren't made for the good operators.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
within that year, you're right, I think there could be a process tweak, and somebody might not know about it, but when that renewal happens, I just.
Well, it's an educational experience for me to understand how the state's operating too. So, and that's one of the things, I mean, when it comes to manufacturing, I think, a little extra scrutiny in this particular area is important, because you're actually making the product people are going to consume. It's not just, you know, growing a plant, drying out a bud, whatever you do to it. Now you're actually doing things to it and manipulating it. And so I think, this process particularly, you're gonna be under, more scrutiny, I think.
I agree, and I hope I am actually, because this process should be monitored.
And all, MJ products have to be pre-approved by the marijuana control board, so we can't just add in new products, so I'm assuming that would be the same requirement here. That we add in.
As written, I mean, we can talk about whether you can inform that or not.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I think, especially when it comes to manufacturing, I think we need to make sure we're crystal clear that if there's changing to the marijuana to the manufacturing process or products, you know, that we know.
I think it's very specific in code that if they change their process, they have to come back to I mean, I think there's a specific line that talks about that. I don't think I mean, a product would fall into the not a minor amendment, so it would be captured, but I don't think it's captured explicitly.
Like, I don't care if you change your colors, right? Okay, let's be honest, that's not what I'm worried about, like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not, you know, you were talking about earlier, adult color versus, you know, I'm just, you know, it's like all of a sudden, oh, this particular product would be better if we added a little extra this or a little extra that.
Sure.
I don't know what
Especially
this.
the liquid oxygen, and it was a much more dangerous process.
Or add caffeine, like
Absolutely.
that machine in Colorado.
I agree.
See, I wouldn't have even thought of adding caffeine, so I don't know how to, I don't know if we're covered yet on this, I'm a little skeptical that we don't.
But there's not just any caffeine, the way that they did it in
Now
Colorado.
we're curious.
Oh, so what they did, there was a product in Colorado that they added some massive, like, no-dose amount of caffeine to a product, not like a safe amount, not like a cup of coffee or anything like that. It was an unfortunate amount, and actually, that's where some of those edible deaths came from. That whole company's been shut down.
Take that into account.
Just a question, do you think this marijuana control board has a big enough staff to do all of it?
No,
I think they do,
they do
with
an
what they
amazing
have.
job.
How big is their staff?
Seven, I think they have like 2 gals that work on the actual licenses. It was down to 1 for about a month, because one unexpectedly quit, and then they hired or took somebody off the alcohol renewal licenses, and there was obviously that big
see that maybe draft some sort of condition that explicitly spells out? Or do you think we're covered?
In terms of if they make changes to their process or their products, I think we're covered.
Okay.
I just wanna add one housekeeping thing. So at the very end, there's the posting affidavit. They did submit their posting affidavit. It was kind of after the staff report went out. I'm gonna work with Kim and Mandy. I don't know how to get it. We'll get it in if necessary. I just didn't want it to be an issue at the assembly meeting. They have up until the night of the assembly meeting to get it in. But I just want to go on record that they think they did that.
Okay, good, thank you. So we're straying into things that aren't necessarily relevant to the approval of it because we don't know the industry really well. So I was curious on this industrial hygienicist, is this a municipal employee, or kind of a state employee, or you have to bring someone up?
It's a certified industrial hygienist, and when I looked into it, I was concerned about whether it had to be Alaska or a certain state, but they're actually federally certified, so they actually can go to all 50 states. So I picked one that was very familiar with the industry in Colorado. He's actually one of my ex-teachers as well, so kind of just worked very well. So he was really comfortable because one, he's known that he is trading, he knows I know the processes, I've tested. The score was 100% on the test when I took the test, so I'm very familiar with explosion levels, and I'm very familiar with the cause and the cure, and how I can train my employees to be safe in the workplace.
This is just a thought, just because, and this is probably more towards the staff, but, especially because this is the very first manufacturing, I think it may be a good idea with all manufacturing. If the industrial hygienist is coming up to evaluate your process, I think this would be a good opportunity for code enforcement or whoever from the city that would be responsible for double checking potential violations, for them to actually be there and learn, because otherwise, how do you know? Does that make?
I'm just fine.
Well, I think this is a good learning opportunity for the city too, because if you have a code inspector come later, or some marijuana inspector come later and say, listen, we think you're violating your process or something, how would they really
Yeah,
know?
we never know.
How would they know?
So Erica, I have a question on those lines. Is it DHHS that has responsibility for that aspect?
No, the DEC.
DEC does. Amy, our staff is largely looking at all of the site-related issues and the signs, all of those issues. But we have this range of different, of things. Title 23 for building construction area that falls into a different department. But the thing about some of those types of things, and I would tend to agree, is that would fall into the DEC or a different organization. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in this whole review and process.
So when you say DEC, do you actually mean like the federal DEC?
No, the
No,
state.
state Department of Environmental Conservation.
Okay.
So we have to submit an application to DEC to, before we even get from the Marijuana Control Board, as part of the application. And so they come and they inspect too, and that's part of the process for the state.
And Terry, I understand your point. I mean, not everybody can know everything, but, the Denver collaborative model, they've really worked to cross-train, their people and collaborate between the city and the state. And, I mean, some of these manufacturing processes do have hazards, and so I think it would be great to have our enforcement staff, learn as much as they can, so maybe they're not regulating it, but they can identify issues of concern and then, contact DEC. So, I mean, I can follow up with Justin and see whether we can work something out where.
I don't argue that it'd be
Yeah,
great
yeah.
for the cross-training. All I'm saying is that there are a lot of moving parts, and we try to work hard with our adjoining, building safety group and the other people who are actually coming out to do inspections for
This
the
is the
building
first
itself.
time we're looking at process,
Yep.
like actual manufacturing process. And so again, I mean, when Erica and I were talking about this earlier, I was asking if there's changes in process or changes in products, are we covered from the municipal law point? And she said, yeah, so obviously there's some way we're saying we're responsible at some point. I just don't know how we would know. I mean, we might look at your logbooks or whatever you keep track of, but it makes perfect sense to me that some somebody within the enforcement arm of the city, should at least meet with an industrial and a hygienist and kind of walk through the process. And I don't know who else to look at other than, you know, whoever's doing enforcement, which is code enforcement, DHS, or code enforcement.
Code enforcement.
The code enforcement falls under you, right?
It doesn't actually, Jack Frost leads our code enforcement group,
Yeah.
but we do work very closely with him.
Oh, okay.
So-
Well, I was gonna say, well, Jack's the only one that's popping in my mind right now, 'cause he's the one I know, so. I'll follow up. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a question, are you gonna stamp on these made in Alaska so people know what they're buying was made here locally?
We're gonna
Versus
try.
shipped from
We're gonna
outside?
try, didn't know what kind of boundaries we could cross with that.
We're gonna talk to them about it.
Yeah.
See if
It'd be
they-
good marketing thing is to make, put on it's made in Alaska.
Absolutely.
So Alaskans know where this is made at.
Absolutely.
We would love to do that. We just have to have that
Just have to have
conversation with
approval
them.
first.
and- Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, after you make these edibles, they have to go to be tested?
Correct.
That's correct? So that we know exactly, there'll be a label on there that says what the THC content is and
Right.
whatever ingredients are in there besides that.
And the batch numbers, so we can trace back to the original thing.
And with processes too, I just thought about something else. If I change my process, and especially in the marijuana industry or culture, I'm gonna be proud about it. So I'm gonna wanna brand that process. I'm gonna wanna get that at the dispensary. So, yeah, I mean, in dispensaries, you start seeing new products pop up. It's probably a good clue that, you know, a process has changed or a new edible is out there. But me personally, I'm gonna wanna brag, I'm gonna wanna wrote about it. So I want that approved. I want everybody to know about it. So just on a personal level, if I do change something, it's gonna be something I'm proud of and want everybody to know about.
Lucas, you mentioned that there may be some bad operators. I mean, what would be someone who gets into manufacturing, and you may use an expensive process, and they say, well, they wanna cut back into a cheaper process, for example, and is it more dangerous for the consumer, or does something could explode?
What I could see is, if somebody doesn't have the startup cost, because it's extremely expensive to get all the right equipment, get all the right processes set up. If somebody wanted to scapegoat that essentially and not buy the certified equipment or the tested equipment, I could see that being a huge issue, a huge danger. And then just if they slack on their SOPs, you know, you should have a standard operating procedure for everything in a manufacturing lab. So if that gets diverted at all, and they just start being sloppy with the stuff, then that causes people not to look and pay attention to valves and pressure gauges and things like that. It's just, it's intricate, so, I can just see some people slacking on it, and to me, it's like, we have to stay on that SOP side, we have to stay on that policy side, so.
Because there have been explosions.
There has been. I mean, you look through the states and it comes down to really, really bad operators, like the New Mexico explosion. It took them 10 months to find out what caused the explosion. I scrubbed the video with my iMac in about 5 seconds and found that he had a heat gun with an open pool of butane. So, I mean, bad idea, so bad operator. I mean, so, all of the ones that care about their employees and want everybody safe in the building, I don't really see that being an issue, but the ones that just wanna get through this industry as quick as they can, you could ask about that.
In that 10-month time period where it took them to figure out what happened, from the state side goes a lot with what you were saying earlier about being able to issue spot and having people that actually have been walk through what the process is and what you're supposed to do by a professional that's been doing it. So I think that's a good, combat.
For instance, the extraction machine was right in front of the doorway. When the explosion went off, they couldn't even get out of the room because the equipment was in the doorway. I mean,
And the doors
silly.
open.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So silliness. I mean, just bad habits.
Well, you know, it's probably not, and obviously not gonna require a license, but, I would really appreciate it if when your industrial engineer comes up or hygienist comes up, if you would allow our code enforcement to walk through, because I think, as you're noticing from the questions here, this is a good learning experience for us. And I think especially when we're talking about code enforcement, we're talking about, processes and things that make us safer, whether it's building codes, whether it's whatever. And so obviously, I'm sure, we would appreciate that if you would allow it.
I'd be more than willing.
You said you went outside to get trained. Is there an industry standard on the training you need to be a manufacturer? Because some of us got our doctorates, some of us did master's degrees. In the areas we work in, we don't know anything about manufacturing,
Right.
so.
Is your responsibility limited to cold loops or two machines?
Well, my response to that would be, what they first focused on in trainings was safety, like explosion levels, like what happens if you do have a butane leak, what to do to train your employees in that situation. So a lot of the training was a fire training, like a fire code training. So we went through an extensive training on gases and explosion levels, temperatures in the room. So like for instance, I don't like saying this, nobody repeat it, but my room will be cool, okay, and it's cool for a reason, other than it drops my explosion levels way down. So if the room is colder, you don't have a huge flash point in your room, okay? There's other reasons why my room's cold too, but that's more on the IT side, so we're not gonna repeat. But anyway, so there's just certain trainings that we went through that wasn't so much marijuana, it just actually gave us the background in fire training and what happens in explosions and things like that. And then the biochemist side or the organic chemistry side of the extraction, that's what we train us on to actually do the processes, to actually, do the chemical separations, to separate the cannabinoids, to separate the terpenes, to create our different products that we create. So there's two levels of training there, one like the whole safety side, fire marshal side, and then you have the actual processing side of that training. Is it a standard in the industry? I wouldn't say it is because it's so new.
It's expensive.
And it's extremely expensive. Yeah, I've spent over 20 grand in trainings in the last 3 years, so it's extremely expensive.
Thank you.
Erica? Okay, anything else?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, sometime when you get all up and running, I think the committee would like to come take a tour of the facility sometime.
As long
At
as
least
you're
I know
all
I would.
21.
Spoken like a lawyer.
It's all new, and it's neat looking at some pictures, but it's hard to really get a great visualization.
I would love to have you do this done.
Great, send pictures to Forrest. Check Forrest's birthday. Okay, so, we move to this.
So,
Eric?
So, Jana went through some changes in their application for several products, and so in order to bring consistency to the approval, which says they have to comply with their application, may I suggest adding a condition that says provide revised product information for changes required by the Marijuana Control Board?
Got it.
You already have that ready. So. that would
We
be
don't
fine.
actually, I just handwritten those in my book as we were going through it, but I will type it up, in that
Thank you, Erica.
J05 and just say that.
Just add that to the packet for me.
Yeah, you would
Or
amend
just a
that.
condition.
You would amend that on the floor and add that as condition 13.
You would send that?
Yeah, I'll email it out.